Hello, you magnificent, magnificent bastards. Hello, how are you? Um, Welcome to my YouTube channel. It is nice to see you again. I like what you're wearing today. That's not everyone could pull that off, but somehow you do. I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, hey, where's part 2 of your world building series that you started last year at a different house that you did one of, and keep teasing that you're going to do the second one? Well, that's a good question. And the answer is it's not here, because I had not planned on doing a YouTube video today. But then I saw some articles floating about on the intrawebs that I had to respond to. I just had to. By the way, after a lot of feedback, this is getting shaved off, at least for a little bit longer, and it'll come back. Eventually it'll be back and it'll stay on my face, because the reason it's on here like this already is because I'm just really fucking lazy. And ladies, I don't know how the hell you do it. The whole shaving your legs and your pits and all that stuff, that's a pain in the ass. This is nothing compared to all that, and this is a pain in the ass. I mean, I didn't really realize it because I haven't shaved in 20 years. So yeah, but I'm gonna keep it off a little while longer, just because I'm uncomfortable keeping it off, which makes me think that I should probably keep it off a little while longer, just to get to a place where I'm not uncomfortable with it. Not to mention the fact that I ever have to go on the lam, and I need to completely radically change my appearance. I can just shave this off and get an eye patch, maybe a hook, and no one would be the wiser, except of course that I've put pictures of myself without a beard up all over the internet, so I'm boned. Anyways, speaking of being boned, current year Star Trek. Now, I haven't talked about it a lot lately, but I am a huge Star Trek fan. If you can see back there on the wall there, my buddy Bob gave me this poster for Christmas this last year, and it's the same fucking poster I had on my wall as a wee lad when I used to watch Star Trek reruns and would tape record them, which I actually thought I was the only person who did that shit. And I've been listening to there's a YouTube channel called Enterprise Incidents, which if you're a Trekkie, I would highly recommend, or Trekker, whichever you prefer. If you identify as Trek, it's called Enterprise Incidents. It's two gentlemen who love Star Trek and have loved Star Trek for a long time. Robert Meyer Burnett has a channel called Robservations. Well, he's got several channels, but that's one of them. He's also old school Trek fan, and I love listening to those guys. They're just freaking chock full of information. But anyways, when I was a kid, I had this poster. I bought it at a Hills department store, which I don't even think those exist anymore, and had it taped to my wall with like masking tape or something. And had not thought about it, had not seen that poster in, Jesus Christ, a long time, 40 some years. And Bob's like, here, happy Christmas, Merry Christmas. And I was like, holy shit, I freaked out. So I immediately put it up on the wall in the office here, which is slowly kind of coming together. I know it looks like a freaking train wreck. It's always going to look like a train wreck, even when I have it like prettied up. I also found all these cool posters that my publisher gave me back when books were coming out. So like, for example, this is a poster of the original Nightwise cover. And I got one for Brotherhood of the Wheel. I got one for Six Gun Terra. I think I'm gonna get those framed like nice and try to work them in here too. Between the shelves and the windows, I don't have a lot of extra wall space. I've got a Captain America shield up on the wall and a clock, and but I'm going to maybe move Star Trek over a little and make room for at least the Six Gun poster. And then I got a bunch of other little posters and stuff that I want to put up. I'll figure out a place for it. I got geek stuff aplenty. But Star Trek. I love Star Trek. I've always loved Star Trek. And I've tried really, really, really hard to enjoy the last 10 years or so of Trek. The reboot movies, like from 2009 on, Star Trek, Star Trek Into Darkness, and Star Trek Beyond, were okay. I did not like, I really think a lot of things in there that I did not like. But there were some things in there I did like. And a lot of people give, I think it's Star Trek Beyond, the third one, a lot of shit, but actually it felt the most like the original show to me. The Chris Pine, they stopped trying to make him into like this stupid frat boy and make him more like Kirk from the basically Kirk from the show. Even a little more seasoned and a little less kind of all over the map. And but that being said, I did like Chris Pine's Kirk. I liked Zachary Quinto's Spock. Is it Carl Urban? I always get him, and Keith Urban's the country music guy, married to Nicole Kidman. Carl Urban is the New Zealand, Australian actor who is in some kind of a weird cosmic battle with Gary Oldman to be able to play anyone and everyone. They could play filing cabinets, they could play coffee makers, whatever. If you haven't seen Dredd, by the way, you should check out Dredd. Dredd is fucking awesome. It's really good, and I wish they had done some more of them because he's really good in it, and it's a good movie, but it's a good Judge Dredd movie too. Anyways, so and I've tried to like Star Trek Discovery. I'm currently watching season 2 of Picard. I hate it less than I hated season 1, but there's a lot of stuff in there. I blame it primarily, and since this is a writing channel, it's supposed to be anyway, I blame a lot of it on the writing and on the show running, because I think we have a lot of people doing these shows and writing these shows who really don't have as deep and abiding a love for the source material as a lot of the folks who are watching it. And I understand they were trying to make Trek more accessible, make it a little more exciting, a little more bang pow boom. Nothing wrong with that. But Star Trek has a heart and a soul that is very unique in episodic science fiction. There is certain things that feel right in Star Trek and certain things that do not feel right in Star Trek. And I feel like the folks who are doing the current iterations of Star Trek really don't give a shit about any of that, and they don't really get that. And I already know that those of you out there who probably dig on the new Star Trek are going to be like, you're an old, salty old man screaming at clouds. And, what am I going to do? I'm going to say you're wrong. I mean, I don't enjoy them as much as the original stuff. And I'll get into that a little bit, but because what I saw today, I kind of knew it was coming. I think a lot of us knew it was coming. We kind of hoped and prayed it wasn't coming, but it is. Let's just get to the article, and then we'll kind of go from there. Here it is. Star Trek Strange New Worlds casts Paul Wesley as James T. Kirk for season 2 of Paramount Plus series. Yippee. There he is. He looks good. I can see him as Kirk. I mean, he's wearing the little knockoff Trek uniform with the knockoff Trek badge, chevron. Star Trek Strange New Worlds has cast Paul Wesley in the iconic role. Oh, by the way, this is from Variety. I will link to the article in the description of the video. Thank you, Variety, for letting me report on what you're reporting on. Star Trek Strange New Worlds has cast Paul Wesley in the iconic role of James T. Kirk for the Paramount Plus show's upcoming second season. They follow that up with Strange New Worlds is due to premiere on Paramount Plus on May 5th, which is right past my birthday. So this is kind of a birthday present for me. It was renewed for a second season back in January, with that season already in production. So they just skipped the whole you watching it and deciding whether it sucks or not, and just went straight to, hey, let's go ahead and have a second season. Yeah, that sounds good. Yeah, agreed. Okay, great. So in the second season, they're going to have Kirk show up. The show follows the adventures of Captain Christopher Pike prior to Kirk becoming captain of the Enterprise. 10 years prior to Kirk becoming captain of the Enterprise. Wesley will appear as a young version of Kirk. He is now the third actor to play the character as in a live-action project. Most famously, bullshit. William Shatner is James T. Kirk in the original Star Trek series, as well as in multiple films. Chris Pine has played Kirk in 3 Star Trek films to date, with a 4th on the way, which is actually hyperbole. It's news to Chris Pine and all the other actors that they're going to be in a 4th Star Trek movie. They threw that out there. They've done it multiple times over the last few years, whenever they're trying to get some money to see if they can get interest in doing another Trek movie. Which, by the way, if you watch the new Treks, if you watch Discovery or Picard, there's literally dozens of producers for all of these things. Like 20 plus producers is not unusual for these shows. This is a quote from the showrunner. Paul is an accomplished actor, an astonishing presence, and a welcome key addition to the show, said Strange New Worlds executive producer Alex Kurtzman, the Voldemort of Star Trek, and showrunners and executive producers Akiva Goldsman and Henry Alonso Myers. Like all of us, he is a lifelong Star Trek fan. That is also bullshit, by the way. And we're excited by his interpretation of this iconic role. Alex Kurtzman is not a lifelong fan of Star Trek. He's said as much in interviews. He basically said he never really got into Star Trek, that he thought it was boring and too cerebral. And basically it was always more of a Star Wars guy. J.J. Abrams, who, if Kurtzman is Anakin, J.J. Abrams is Palpatine, basically said the same thing. They didn't really get into Star Trek. They weren't really into it, but they were more than happy to take that Star Trek cheddar. After the news broke, Wesley tweeted that he was deeply humbled and still a little startled about the opportunity to play James Kirk. He added that apparently by chance, he recently sat next to Shatner on a flight to Los Angeles after Shatner's recent trip into low Earth orbit. Basically, he said, I managed to say hello and we chatted. I'm not one who usually believes in fate, but this was more than a coincidence. So thanks, Mr. Shatner, for the good company and for seating us together. My thanks to the great bird in the sky, which I don't know if he's trying to talk about the great bird of the galaxy, which was a nickname for Gene Roddenberry, but maybe he's just talking about the great bird in the sky, like the plane or something. I don't know. Can't wait for you all to see our Captain Kirk on your screens. All right, well, I didn't know who the hell this guy was. Let's find out a little bit about who Mr. Wesley is as a thespian. Wesley is best known for playing Stefan Salvatore in the CW drama series The Vampire Diaries, on which he starred for 8 seasons and just over 170 episodes. I used to date someone a long time ago that was really into The Vampire Diaries and thought it was a really cool show. I trust their judgment. I never really saw it, but it's a CW show, which is kind of like strike one. But if they do a certain kind of show, and if you dig that show, they're really good at those kind of shows. So he played a vampire on The Vampire Diaries. His other TV credits include Tell Me a Story, 24, which was a cool show for a while, Army Wives, Everwood. He will next be seen in the feature History of Evil and has also starred in films like Roll Bounce, Peaceful Warrior, and Before I Disappear, the last of which he also produced. Strange New World stars Anson Mount as Captain Pike, Ethan Peck as Spock, and Rebecca Romaine as Una Chin Riley, which I was not familiar with her full name. Fun fact, there are #1 novels, at least one, that Star Trek novels that were written about her, because she was kind of a mysterious character in the pilot. These characters all show, Pike and #1 showed up in the first Star Trek pilot. It was the pilot that the network executives thought was too brainy for you Neanderthals out there in TV land, and didn't accept it. And thanks to Lucille Ball and Desi Liu, they actually managed to get a second pilot made, which is where William Shatner came in as the captain. And Jeffrey, the original Pike, you guys know his name, shout it out, you'll put it in the comments. He had another commitment. I think he was going to play Jesus in something, so he didn't get a chance to do the second pilot, so they got Bill Shatner in, and the rest is, as I say, history. But anyways, they did a novel about #1, who was played by Marjol Roddenberry, Marjol Barrett Roddenberry, Gene Roddenberry's, eventually Gene Roddenberry's wife. And she was also the voice for the computer in The Next Generation, and I think in the movies too. But she played #1, who was the second in command of the ship, and you never really found out much about her in the pilot, and it was kind of mysterious. And #1 was a slang term that captains would use for their first officer. But my friend and editor Greg Cox wrote a novel about #1, and he did give her the name Una. I don't know if he gave her the name Chin Riley. There was a Lieutenant Riley that showed up in a couple of episodes of the original series, who was an interesting character. I wonder if she ends up being related to him somehow. So, look, anyways, so this is all aboard the Enterprise prior to the events of the original Star Trek series by 10 years. Okay. Let's unpack this. They did Star Trek Discovery. There's going to be a new ship, new characters, 10 years before Kirk. It was being a prequel. Originally, it was going to be done, show ran and written and kind of envisioned by the fella who did Hannibal, Fuller. Damn it, I'm sorry guys, let me look this up because it's going to drive me crazy and I don't want to sound like a complete total idiot. Just a partial idiot. Brian Fuller. Brian Fuller was the original guy who was going to do Discovery, and he wanted to do an anthology series, like do Star Trek, like short, like arcs of Star Trek stories set in different eras, with maybe the same cast playing different parts or having new people come in for each arc, kind of like what they do with American Horror Story. And that jackass at CBS, in my opinion, well, he's not at CBS anymore, but he's still a jackass, I'm pretty sure. Les Moonves. Anyone with a name like Les? Less is sometimes less. Balked at how much it fucking costs to do a Star Trek show. Fun fact, the guy that came up with it, I basically greenlit the current iteration of Star Trek, hated Star Trek, hated science fiction, got Star Trek and Star Wars mixed up all the fucking time. Les Moonves, who was kicked out of CBS, to my understanding, due to he got Me Too'd into oblivion. So couldn't happen to a nicer guy. They got rid of Brian Fuller. They glommed onto some of his ideas and then didn't fully use them, which is actually interesting because when we do the world building, the next thing I want to do with world building is Phoenix Without Ashes, Ed Bryant, Harlan Ellison. And it's actually kind of a similar situation. Hollywood lizards basically taking a writer's ideas and running with them without respecting them or actually kind of really listening to the writer. But hey, it's an idea and it's that science fiction stuff, so it'll be great, and the idiots out there will eat it up like hotcakes. So anyways, The original idea was Discovery was not going to have anything to do with Kirk or Spock. It's not going to have anything to do with the Enterprise. There's going to be brand new characters 10 years before the original series. By the end of first season, the very last episode of first season, spoiler, okay, there, the Enterprise shows up, commanded by Christopher Pike. 10 years before Kirk took over, the Enterprise had already been on like a 10-year mission. Spock mentions in one of the original series that he served with Captain Pike for over 10 years. So Pike became a character. You know, the Enterprise was in the show. Number one showed up. Christopher Pike took command of the Discovery for season 2 and ran around all over the place. So they basically completely invalidated what they said they were going to do. They I mean, you can call it a lie, or they could have, you know, regrouped or fallen back or changed their mind. But whatever you want to call it, the bottom line is they basically started fucking around with original series stuff, and dragging in member berries like Spock and Christopher Pike and the Enterprise, because. And this is the problem I have. And now what they're doing is, Pike was popular enough because Anson Mount's a great actor. Fun fact, there was like 5 seconds where Anson Mount was possibly attached to the TV show for my book, Brotherhood of the Wheel, that one production company was working on. They were working with the guys who wrote and created Hell on Wheels, which Anson Mount was in. Which, if you haven't seen that show, check that show out. It's fucking amazing. Anyways, he was interested in playing Jimmy Ossipile, who's the trucker in my books. But Anson Mount's a great actor, and he played a really good Christopher Pike. And he was the most Star Trek thing about Discovery. Ethan Peck, while he looked and sounded decent as Spock, the writers fucked around with his background a lot, and threw some things in that didn't make a whole hell of a lot of sense. So basically, Discovery, you know, which is going to be his original show with original characters, exploring a section of Star Trek that had never been explored before, couldn't hack it. So they dragged in a bunch of stuff that the old school fans would be like, oh my God, it's Captain Pike. Oh my God, it's the Enterprise. Oh my God, it's Spock. And then fuck them up. They CW'd them. Anyways, but Pike was popular enough. There was enough good buzz about him that these guys decided to do a Captain Pike series, which I have been guardedly excited about, because I do like Anson Mount, and I think it would be interesting to see the Federation, the early days of the Federation, early days of that era. It would be cool to see, you know, episodic Star Trek set on the Enterprise, different captain, different characters, but they're not doing that. The articles that have come out, they're going to have Ensign Uhura on the ship, which would mean she was on the ship 10 years prior to Kirk getting on the ship. At least if we are going by the original canon. Canon's an ugly word now, so sorry. Hope I don't get bleeped. I hope YouTube doesn't, you know, get rid of this for that. They're going to have one of the doctors. Forgive me, I cannot recall his name, but he was in a couple of the episodes for the original series. He was basically the medical doctor who was the expert on Vulcan physiology. He's going to be on there. Christine Chapel is going to be on there. And that also screws with original series continuity, because Christine Chapel, who was played by Majel Barrett, after they decided not to pursue the character of number one in the second pilot, they brought her on several episodes down the road in season 1 as Christine Chapel, who is this research scientist who was looking for her fiance, who was another research scientist who had gone on this expedition to this planet and never returned. at the end of the episode, she decided to stay on with the Enterprise and became the head nurse to Leonard McCoy's chief medical officer. And was a good character, great character. That's how she's got on the show. That's how she came to the Enterprise. So they're already fucking with this. They're fucking around with this. Now maybe they will tap dance in the continuity, and I'll be happy, and I'll go, oh, they actually watched that episode of the original series. They didn't just pluck this character's name out of a fucking hat. And they're actually doing it justice. I hope I'm right about that. That would make me really happy, because that would make me really dig the show more. I got no beef with new Star Trek. I got no beef with seeing new shows. I got no beef with them exploring historical parts of the universe, of the world that Gene Roddenberry and all these other writers and actors built. That makes me happy. I like that world a lot. Got it on my wall there. What I don't like is when you order cherry cheesecake and the waiter brings this thing to your table and it's Alpo with a strawberry on top of it. And you go, I wanted cherry cheesecake. And they say, well, there it is. That's your cherry cheesecake. No, it's not. That's Alpo with a strawberry on top of it. Well, that's what we got for cherry cheesecake, pal. Take it or leave it. That's how I feel about new Star Trek. I feel it's a whole bunch of people who don't know jack shit about the original material, haven't watched I think they probably like scanned Wikipedia and watched a few movies. And look, Star Trek like every other franchise that's been around for a long time, it contradicts itself. I got no problem with it contradicting itself. It just seems like there's just this blatant disregard for everything that came before, almost a contempt for everything that came before. And that makes it difficult for me to enjoy it or even to watch it. I'm trying with Picard season 2, which is less loathsome than Picard season 1, but it still doesn't really feel like Star Trek at all. It doesn't feel like Star Trek. It doesn't have a heart. It doesn't have a soul. The characters are not endearing. Even the characters who are returning after 30 years, Jean-Luc Picard does not seem like Jean-Luc Picard. He doesn't seem like the guy that we watched for 7 years and then all these movies and stuff. He doesn't come off like that character at all. I don't see anything in the current character that in any way, shape, or form reminds me of the old character. The new character is Alpo with a strawberry on top of it. That they're telling me is Captain Picard. So anyways, the beef I've got is if they wanted to do Discovery and they wanted to have like new characters, new ship, new adventures, awesome. If they could keep either ignore what came before or respect what came before, but they did neither of those. They dragged a bunch of stuff in, which I think pretty crassly was just for ratings and to get old school fans engaged, and then just completely just kind of disregarded what came before, disregarded, hey, here's a character with this name, blah blah blah, and we're going to ignore that character's history, that character's origins, personality, interactions, history. We're just going to ignore all that. But we're going to keep the name of the character because that's a touchstone. And someone will go, oh, I recognize that. Yeah. And, an example I usually use for this kind of stuff is when John Byrne took over Superman for DC Comics, he basically said, and John Byrne was kind of a superstar. He was very much in demand. He can be a great artist. He isn't always a great artist, but he can be. And he's a pretty damn good writer. He can be a good writer too. He can also be schlocky as hell. But one of the things he was is a prima donna at that time. And he was just like, I want complete control of Superman's history. I want to be able to take whatever was before and just get rid of it and redo everything. And that's the new history. And DC was like, yeah, John, yeah, that sounds great. Yeah, yeah. And a lot of people got excited about it for a while. There are also a lot of fans who had read Superman comics since they were a little baby, or maybe they were older folks and they had been reading them since they were kids and they had watched Superman change. It's mythology. There's all these different versions of King Arthur. There's all these different versions of Robin Hood. But there's kind of a common thread that is kind of respected and held to. John Byrne threw a lot of that out. And his version was kind of neat. And in some ways, some of the things that he did have been incorporated into the Superman mythology. Other parts of it have been thrown in the trash and ignored just as thoroughly as he ignored all the stuff that came before him. But just before, literally the last Superman story they did before John Byrne kicked in and everything changed was a story that Alan Moore wrote. And it used every hokey, hoary cliche from every Superman story from the 1920s to the, I think at the time it was like the late 80s, I think the 80s. That's when all this stuff changed. All the silly stuff, because there's some silly ass Superman comics, a lot of really bad Superman comics, a lot of just ridiculous stuff. He used all of it, and he wrote it and figured out a way to make even the ridiculous stuff make sense. He turned to Mr. was it Mixaplix, the little imp guy from the 12th dimension or whatever, silly little character. He turned him into this demon-like thing, and he basically stuck, he had Krypto the super dog in there, he had the 27 flavors of kryptonite, he had all this stuff in the story, and it was a great story. It was dramatically tight, it was engaging, and it paid respect to everything that had come before it, even the silly stuff, and made it not silly. That's the mark of a good writer. A good writer is, I'm giving you this character, I'm giving you this world, and you are going to work in it and play in it. But you didn't build this world. You're going to build this little adjunct, this little corner of it. You're adding on a deck. That's your deck. But the house is somebody else's house. It was built by many people over many years. And you should respect that. Not just come in and burn it the fuck down and start building a new house, which is what John Byrne did. And the last line of Moore's story was, this is an imaginary tale, but then again, aren't they all? And that's how I feel about New Trek. I feel like they have basically decided they're going to burn the house down and build something new. But the problem is for a lot of people, that house, that original structure is what made the show special and endearing and made them lifelong fans. And when you burn that down and you just put something up and it's Alpo with a strawberry on top of it, I could give less than a shit about that. I don't care. You've lost me as a fan. And I'm still trying. I'm still watching this stuff, but it's not exciting. It's not like Deep Space Nine or I gotta be honest, I never really got into Voyager that much. I've tried multiple times. I'll keep trying. There are good Voyager episodes, but actually the problem I have with Voyager is a lot of the same problem I have with the New Trek, which is the writing is really inconsistent and all over the place. And some of it is just downright bad. So if you're going to do a show about a prequel to the original series with the captain of the ship who was captain before Jim Kirk, why don't you focus on the characters that you know were around then? And why don't you focus on stories, engaging science fiction stories that maybe impinge a little bit on some of the things that we're dealing with in the world now, which is something Star Trek was always really good at. Science fiction is the court jester of literature. It can caper around and stick its tongue out and make fart noises and make fun of the king when anybody else that would do it would get their head lopped off. Science fiction, that's science fiction's job in part, is to show us the future and warn us about the future. And Star Trek was always a mirror. It would show us ourselves, and it would show us ourselves in a way that we could look at without immediately becoming defensive and shutting down and not listening. And that's one of the things that makes it a beautiful show, makes it like an iconic show. It's one of the reasons you have people who have loved it their whole lives. And I can't think of a single iconic episode of any of the new Trek, any of the shows. There's nothing there that go, oh, you remember the show where they did this thing? No, not really. No, it's just, I don't know. Anyways, so my concern is when I saw this article today, to bring this meandering thing kind of around full circle, they have not even put the show out yet. There's not been a single episode out yet. They have already said they're going to have a character on the show who is a descendant of Khan Noonien Singh from Wrath of Khan and from the original episode Space Seed. So apparently, I guess Spock forgot that there was a character on the show, on the Enterprise 10 years prior to Space Seed that was related to this genetic Superman tyrant, bad guy, maniac. Why are they sticking that character in there? Because it's a Memba berry. Because it's related to Khan. Remember Khan? Well, they pulled that shit in Star Trek Into Darkness. They threw Khan in there. Instead of, they were doing a reboot of Star Trek. They could do anything. But they decided they would do something shitty and just kind of like take something that had been done before better and just ruin it. But they were figuring, oh, the old fans those idiots will eat this up. Well, no, we really won't. Because if you knew anything about the fandom in Star Trek, you would know that they're not dummies. They're actually pretty smart people. Most science fiction folk are pretty damn smart. Science fiction, when I was growing up, see, old man. The shit that I'm into now, that I've been into my whole life, D&D, Star Trek, Star Wars. You were a fucking nerd. You were a geek. You were a loser. You all sat at the one table in the lunchroom together. The jocks have taken over our culture, our pop culture. The cool kids, the guys who were always the bad guys in the John Hughes movies, are now running corporate Hollywood science fiction. And they think that whatever shit they pump out, the nerds will just eat it up because they're stupid nerds. Oh, well, no, that doesn't really work that way. Amazon is having a lot of clapback about some of the stuff they're doing with Lord of the Rings. And I'm not even going to get into that because I can't really speak to Lord of the Rings. I'm not a big Tolkien guy. My friend Sean, who was one of my D&D buddies, that's another long story. He was a football player, sat down at the lunch table one day when I was running D&D, fell in love with D&D, and ended up really falling in love with Tolkien and became a professor of, I believe, medieval history, and with a specialization in Tolkien. But I mean, this stuff means things to people. There are people who will get butthurt about how you handle Tolkien stuff. There are people who will get butthurt about how you handle Jim Kirk, or how you handle the Enterprise, or how you handle the Star Trek universe, that world. It means something to people. Star Wars. There are people who really are into that, and you can't just slap whatever the fuck you want into a mold and call it Star Wars or Star Trek or Lord of the Rings and expect that it's going to be accepted. And fandom's always been contentious. There's always been arguments and debates about shit. But when you're dealing with like kind of the DNA of a intellectual property, those things usually fans can agree on because those are the things that kind of brought them to it in the first place. And we basically have with New Trek, and I'm really hoping that when Strange New Worlds comes out, I can come on here and say, this is a fucking amazing show. And all the things I was worried about, don't worry about it, guys. Watch it. It's fucking awesome. I'll tell you right now, I am going to watch Picard season 2 because they did change some of the things that really bummed me out about season 1. I feel like they are trying. I feel like there's some influence that is they like, oh, we're going to listen to some of the fans. We're going to pay attention to we're going to pay attention to what you guys have been saying. We're one of you. We respect you, and we're going to try to give you a show that respects the source material. If you were reading Shakespeare, there's all kinds of interpretations of Shakespeare. Some of them are much better than others. Kenneth Branagh has done some really cool ones. There's a David Tennant Hamlet, I believe, that's really freaking good. And they're set in different eras. They're directed and sort of staged different ways, but they all respect the original material. Christmas Carol, same thing. There's it. As long as you respect where something came from, and you come at it with love and respect, you will find a lot of goodwill amongst fans. It's when it seems like it's kind of crass and soulless and commercial that you will begin to feel people kind of clap back. And I hope I'm wrong. I hope Strange New Worlds is really good, and I hope it really is a great addition to the Star Trek mythology and to Star Trek world building. I hope that what they do with Jim Kirk is really good. There's an article that came out a few years ago that we're talking about. They said if they did bring Kirk in, that he would probably be bisexual. I'm okay with that because I'm pretty sure Captain Kirk would fuck anything, and probably has. And to be honest, I really think that the universe that Gene Roddenberry envisioned, love and how we love each other and who we love, will be very diverse and very inclusive and accepting. And I got no beef with any of that. I do have a beef if they have Captain Kirk running around the Enterprise 10 years before he was supposed to be captain of it, when there was absolutely nothing in any of the history, mythology, stories, episodes, books that indicate any of that. That to me is just someone plopping Alpo onto a plate with a strawberry and calling it cherry cheesecake. So I would love to hear your thoughts. I'm going to try the next time you see me. Hopefully we'll be doing this. This had to do with world building. I think this kind of, in a weird ass way, I could probably shoehorn this into world building. We can call it world building, even if it is Alpo with a fucking strawberry on top of it. But I would love to hear your opinions of the new Trek. I'd love to get your experiences with that. I'd love to hear what you think. Am I full of shit? Am I an old fucker who just doesn't like new stuff? Tell me. Beat me, hurt me, make me write bad checks. I'll take it. I can take it. All right, you guys are great. I'm gonna shuffle off the buffalo, and we'll see you guys on the next one. Please like the video, share it if you think it's worth sharing. Join the channel, click on that little bell so you get notifications when I do stuff. And look forward to seeing you guys on the next video. I really appreciate all of y'all. And we're going to do a chat in my Discord on Friday the 18th, 10 o'clock to midnight Eastern time. You don't have to be a member of Patreon to do it. Just jump on the Discord, and I will put the link to the Discord in the description of the video. And hope to see you guys there. Come and hang out and say hi, and love to talk to all of you. Take care. Have a great night. I'll talk to you guys later. Bye.